Okay, so today I'm going to share with you our projects or researches on Philippine begonia. This is the normal.
Sure. If you want.
This is the
Can everybody hear okay?
Yeah.
I think we just,
we can hear you.
I think we hear you if
Okay.
you just talk loud.
Yeah. So this is the normal habitat of the begonias in the wild, because you see begonias in your gardens, in the herbarium, or in the gardens, right? Or in the greenhouse. So this is the normal habitat of the Philippine begonias. They normally require pristine forests, that would be primary forests. They don't want to grow in disturbed forests, okay? So generally, they are covered with tall trees, and they are associated with water, nearby water. So that would mean they are associated with waterfalls or a river. So they are generally splashed with this fresh water from the waterfalls or the riverine forest, okay? So let me tell you a little about the Philippines so that I can entice you to visit the Philippines. So the Philippines, together with Madagascar and Sundaland, is one of the biodiversity hotspots. We are one of the 17 megadiversity countries, but we are also one of the hottest of the hotspots. That means we have a lot of species there in the Philippines, but many are endangered of extinction, primarily because of deforestation. So the Philippines consists of about 300,000 kilometers, square kilometers. We have more than 7,000 islands. It depends on the tide.
Can you use the microphone? Some people can't hear. Sorry.
I don't know if it's
not working.
functioning?
Not on.
So there, we have that number of islands.
You're hearing.
But we also have this large number of population. Okay? So before the Spaniards came, we were colonized by the Spaniards for 330 years. Before they came in about 1521, the Philippines was 95% forest covered, but not anymore. Okay? So because of deforestation, the number went down. So in the last, sorry. So in the last survey, we have about 80% forest cover, but because of the government projects of reforestation, we increased in the number of forest cover. But this number would be secondary forests. So we have about more than 16,000 plant species. About 18,000 are the flowering plants, representing 5% of the world's flora. And so, as I have said earlier, we are one of the 17 megadiversity countries. We are also hottest of the hotspots. So here are some of our flowering plants. And these plants that we have are primarily endemic to the Philippines. That is, you find them only in the Philippines. So this is Hoya, we have Rhododendron, Drosera, Monophylia, then Robiolum, Epigenium, Spatulottis. We have more than 1,000 species of Philippine native orchids. And 75% of these are endemic to the Philippines. In fact, I was telling them earlier that our national flower used to be a relative of olive. So Sambak. But we learned later on that there are 3 other countries where asminium is also a national flower. So our legislator said, we have to change. So we have a new second national flower, and it's an orchid. I don't have a picture of our national flower, which is an orchid. But this orchid, which you find in Mindanao, at the lower portion of Mount Apo, is now extinct in the wild because of over-collection. But you find this orchid everywhere, all over the world, because of hybridization. Wali wali. You want this? It's our national flower. Okay, so I studied begonia for my PhD dissertation. This is the only comprehensive work on Philippine begonia, which is about more than 100 years old. It was written by an American botanist, Elmer Merrill, and he was responsible for botanizing the Philippines. He is responsible for naming most of the plants of the Philippines. In fact, he was the one who wrote the Flora of Manila, which is actually the flora of the Philippines, which until now is our flora. We want to have the flora of the Philippines, but not yet. Okay, so this paper, in this paper, Merrill enumerated 59 species. So that's the record of Philippine begonia in those years. So for my PhD dissertation, which I started in 2005, I had to borrow herbarium specimens from this herbaria, and I didn't know yet about breed, about PPI collections deposited at breed. So I borrowed the herbarium specimens of begonia from these institutions. So I had to go to the type localities of begonias. So I had to go to the different islands. Imagine we have more than 7,000 islands. So I have to go to the different islands to study again at first the 59 species that was discovered by the American botanist. So I have to go to the different islands. So at the beginning, I started with my salary as a teacher, so it was very limited. And so sometimes I can travel by bus, but before you can reach an island, you have to take an airplane, especially if it is in Visayas, that is in central Philippines, or in southern Philippines. Okay, and when you reach the province, you take the jeepney. So you're fortunate if you're inside, but sometimes you can be up there. No, let's joke. And then, after the jeepney, you have to go to the villages. Sometimes you take the tricycle, but most of the time, you take the motorcycle. So the road to the mountains can be this rough, okay? So this, I'm there. So the motorcycle can take one sack of rice here, another sack of rice there, or it can have 5 people there, another 5 people. Okay, but most of the time I walk. Okay, so there I started in 2005. So you walk so many hours before you can reach the interior of the mountain. So I had to endure land travel of 3 to 6 hours, then navigate the forest 2 to 6 hours. Now I usually use a cane when I go up the mountain. And now I am fortunate I have students already that come with me. But before, I go by myself, and I would generally ask the barangay captain of the village and would help me go up the forest. So normally, you don't just go up, you cross rivers without bridges, you rappel cliffs, so there. You're fortunate if you have somebody with you and help you cross the bridges, or the rivers, cross the rivers. Okay, so there are more than 60 sections of the begonia. There are a lot of begonia. begonias all over. There are more than 1900 species. So these species are divided into sections, about more than 60 sections. In the Philippines, we have 2 sections of begonia. The first section is the upright begonias. You call them cane begonias. So they belong to section Petermania. It is represented by Begonia pseudolateralis. So this is Begonia pseudolateralis from Mindanao. Okay? So this is characterized by those large leaves, and it has good potential for horticulture because it grows well outside of the mountain. Okay? But the section that I studied really for my dissertation is this section, section Variandra, which is the rhizomatous form. So the section Variandra, which are rhizomatous, would generally grow on rocks, rock crevices of limestone forests. So going back to the map of the Philippines, I would like to start with the island province of Palawan. So this is the enlarged map of Palawan. So we cover Palawan from the northern side to the southernmost of Palawan. So Palawan, the province, is a UNESCO declared biosphere reserve because 50% of its forest cover is still intact. There are about 1,700 to 3,500 flowering plants there, and about 50 to 30% of these flowering plants are endemic to the place only. Okay, so during the American period, 5 species were published by Merriam, and after that, no studies of the plant were found. So for my PhD dissertation and afterwards, we published and added this new species. We have 3 new species in 2009, 5 new species in 2010, 1 in 2011, 3 in 2015, and only last year, 5 new species. So 22 species in total from just one province, and out of that, 21 are narrow endemic. That is, you find them only in that particular place of that particular mountain. You go up the other side of the mountain, you won't see that begonia. So let's start with the begonias that are distributed from the northern part to the central capital and then to the southern side. So this is the northern portion of Palawan. It consists of the Calamian group of islands. And these islands consist primarily of limestone forests. These are 70% Permian limestone of Jurassic origin. So you could just imagine the very nice vegetation of the place. And in these limestone cliffs, the sweetlets, these are birds, Aerodramus potsihagus, locally named as Balitsasayao, are very famously, they are very famous in that place. Why? People gather these sweetlets. The people that would gather this are called the buceadores. Many people have died over the years trying to harvest these nests, as the conditions in the caves, as you see, are treacherous. This is inside those caves. And this is the bird's nest that is collected by the buceadores.
For what purpose?
Listen. I'm going into that. Okay? So this is a hardened strand of the gummy saliva of that bird. And locally, it's the bird's nest and processed or cooked into the bird's nest soup. It is considered a delicacy in the Chinese cuisine because of its rarity, because of its good taste, but also because of its multitudes of health benefits. It improves the memory, it improves nervous function. What else? It contains more than 50% proteins. It has about 31 elements and so many health benefits. So, it's very expensive. It can cost you $5,000 per kilo. It depends on the grade of the nests, right? Again, there are the reasons. But we're not interested with that. We're more interested with the plants that grow outside of the caves, okay? So the people there are one of our indigenous groups. They are called the Tagbanwa. One of the islands is Coron Island, and they are very, very protective of their place. In fact, when you land in that island, you are welcomed by this, and take note. Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints, keep nothing but memories, kill nothing but time. Okay? So you cannot collect begonias there. Okay. So the Americans discovered the Begonia coronensis in that particular island. Also in that island is the Begonia wadei. This begonia is a very interesting begonia. You have this in your greenhouse. It is different from the other begonias, which are herbaceous, because this is sophrutiset, meaning it is woody down there, but up here it is herbaceous. And it grows on coralline rocks that is at the seashore. And so it is exposed under the scorching heat of the sun, not like the other begonias who wouldn't want the sunlight. So this one is exposed under the sun, and it is splashed with seawater. So there is the begonia wadei cultivation. So we go to another island, the Busuanga Island. I found a begonia there, which my collaborator, Dr. Mark Hughes, named after me. So this is the Begonia rubitei. So this is now Begonia rubitei in cultivation, endemic to this particular island only. Okay, so we go to other islands. So one of the places in Taytay is Begonia saporbiculata. So unlike other begonias, it has rounded, almost rounded leaves, and it has thick leaves. Then you are familiar with Begonia blanchi. This is different from others because you see the leaves are spatulate, unlike the others which are more asymmetrically equilateral. But this one is spatulate. And in the wild, it can be green or it can be just dark blue. So we published it in 2011. We named it after our botanist friend from France, Dr. Black, there. And we celebrated the discovery and poured wine into the begonias. So it's I told them it's a different expedition where I usually am perspiring and be very tired, but this one I traveled the mountain with an entourage. It's very rich. So we had drivers, we had security, we had waiters carrying on our food into the forest. And you see, we had wine. Okay, also, this is another interesting begonia. It would generally grow with just one leaf, and they are the inflorescence. So this is another one. That's another one. Palawan is famous for the Cleopatra's Needle. And at Cleopatra's Needle is the begonia named Begonia cleopatrae.
Wow.
Begonia cleopatrae, you have it. It's now critically endangered in the wild. You don't see it in the wild anymore. It's good you have it here in your greenhouse. Then the begonia from Palawan, named Palawanensis. This is one of the well-distributed begonia. You can see this in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, Mindorensis. So among the 22 species in Palawan, this is the only one which is well distributed all over the Philippines. So we went to Tabon Cave Complex. The Tabon Cave Complex is considered the cradle of Philippine civilization. Why? Many human bones were discovered there, believed to be burial jars of the ancient civilization. So they found remains of oldest Homo sapiens in Southeast Asia, dating as far as 47 years ago in this caves, the Tabon Cave Complex. So found at the mouth of the cave would be Begonia gutierrezi. The type locality of this, the type specimen of this is deposited at Brito. Yes, it's part of the PPI collection. So another locality in Palawan, central Palawan, is Mount Mantalingahan. Mount Mantalingahan would be this beautifully patterned begonia, the Begonia clibis. And then we went to the Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park. It's a big park. There are about 8 forest types, about 800 plants, 300 genera, 100 families. There are about 300 tree species, 195 bird species, 30 mammals, 19 reptiles, 8 species of bats in this particular national park. So we want to botanize that place. That's why we have to have permit. You cannot just do research in Palawan without permits. So we have to process the permit, and it takes you to travel to Palawan 3 times because you have to attend 3 different meetings at 3 different levels. First, at the local board, meaning in the village, you have to attend that meeting and defend your research proposal to the local leaders. After defending it to them, the next level is to the city council. Okay? After defending it, to the provincial council. And these meetings are not at the same time. They meet only once in a quarter, and so you are called. And for example, I'm called on a Monday, and they would say, Professor Rubite, are you attending the meeting on Thursday? Because we are going to have that meeting on Thursday. Of course, I have to. So I have to get a flight to Palawan. So it took me 1 year to get that permit. But we have to study Palawan. So we have to study the genetics. So we did molecular work. We studied the chromosome. We studied the anatomy. So we came up with this paper in 2015. We published the 3 new species in that particular park. So one is this species. This park is famous for this underground river, which is considered as UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is also one of the 7 wonders of nature. It is a 24-kilometer cave system. It is considered the world's longest underground river. Wow. But before you can enter the river, you have to appreciate, hopefully, the begonias there, and they are new species. Okay. So once inside, you will be fascinated with the many formations of stalactites and stalagmites. You will be greeted by a lot of bats also. Okay, so going back, at the mouth of the cave is our new species, Begonia tarao. It's a peltate species. And I name it after the name referring to the area, which is the limestone cliffs, and locally this is called tarao. The cliffs are called tarao. So I name it as Begonia tarao. And then on top of the river is a jungle trail. You will be greeted by our monitor lizards, baramos, to go into the jungle trail. So you go up the trail, and in the trail is another new species of begonia. Begonia, which I named after my collaborator, Begonia hugesi, named after Dr. Mark Hughes. And then there's another interesting place, that 150 high and 800 meters long zip line that gets you started up there in the forest, up there in the mountain. You go down into that particular island.
Oh my goodness.
So before you can start the zip line, you have to climb the mountain first. On your way up is the begonia. It's a new begonia, and I name it after the indigenous group of that province. So I name it Begonia Tagbanwa. I saw it in Australia. So the Australian Begonia Society are happy that one of the unknown begonias is named. So it is Begonia Tagbanwa. So we studied using scanning electron microscopy. We studied the upper surface, the adductional surface, the abaxial surface or the lower surface. We made cross sections and we differentiated them. We also studied the chromosomes of this begonia, and the chromosome number generally range from 28 to 30. That's the normal chromosome number of the Philippine species. So we studied the phylogeny, and the new species, Ogesi, Tarao, and Tagbanwa, are placed in one clade. So they are monophyletic and group well with the Palawan species. So these are the other Palawan species. And they are grouped well also with the Philippine species. Those are the outgroups. And so later on, we made another paper on Palawan species, on 5 new species. So this is another interesting begonia, similar to Waday. It grows on the rock crevices of the shoreline. So this is the seawater. So again, this is splashed with seawater. So the stem is again suffruticent. It is characterized by petular and stipular scars, the scars of the leaves and the stipules. So it's very much similar to the Begonia Waday, but it's different. So this is your Waday, and this is the Begonia elniduensis. Different in the leaves, different in, so this is Waday,
wow.
This is elniduensis. So they are primarily differentiated by the clasping leaf base. This doesn't have the clasping leaf base. They also differ in the flowers. We look at the flowers, well differentiated. So there it is, the Begonia elniduensis. When we submitted this, because we have a permit, we have to return the information to the local government. So I informed the local leader, the mayor of the municipality, that you have a very important begonia in your place. So I recommended that it be an icon of conservation of the municipality. And yes, they did. So it's now a symbol of conservation in the island, specifically in the municipality of El Nido. That's why it's named after the place. It's named Begonia elniduensis. Then we went to the central Palawan in the city. So near the river, one of the rivers is another begonia. So we name it after one of the professors there in Palawan, who is also our collaborator. We name it Begonia Jeremila. Then we went to another falls. So see, they look kind of the same with other begonias, but they're different. There is the 5-wing capsule. It has 5 wings. And one of the wings is cuculate. It forms a hood-like structure. So this is one diagnostic character. Then we went to, we found there another species very much similar to Mindorensis, but it is well differentiated by the bracts which are hyaline. Then again at the Tabon Cave, we found a new species. It's a peltate species. We named it Tabonensis. Okay, so let's go to another island province. The island which is very famous for its beaches. So Boracay beaches. You must have heard already about Boracay. So I hope to entice you to visit. But go to Palawan instead. Okay, so this is Panay Island. In Panay Island, it is also famous for the Rafflesia, the largest flower. But you probably know that this is a parasitic flower. It doesn't have roots, it doesn't have stem, it doesn't have leaves. It is a parasite. It grows on the vines of Tetrastigma, a relative of the grapes. So in 2017, we published this 3 new species of Panay Island. So one of this is differentiated by not only those patterned leaves, but it is well differentiated by the oblong capsule. And then, so we named it Begonia colasiensis, which is the name of the municipality, Colasi. And then another species, which I named after the botanist Merrill. So I named it Begonia merrilliana. And then Begonia sikakini. This is your U561. And you can see that in the wild, it can already exist in various forms, various colors. These are the upper or adaxial surfaces, and this would be the lower or the lateral surfaces that would color differently. In cultivation, sometimes it would also color differently. So let's go to the largest island, Luzon. In Mountain Province, these are the limestone cliffs of Mountain Province, Sagada. And it is famous for that hanging coffins. The indigenous groups would bury their dead in between cut trees in we call it supine position. And that is inserted, the tree, that cut tree is inserted into those cliffs. So for centuries, it would be there. So now, here are some of the hanging coffins there. So we're not interested with that. We're more interested with the begonias. So there is your U606, the second unknown begonia that we named. You have it in your greenhouse. This is Begonia cleme. The Mountain Province or the Northern Luzon is also famous for the rice terraces. And in the rice terraces, there are also begonias there. The Begonia meriti. This is one of the well-distributed begonia in Northern Luzon. Another place would be, another province is Cagayan Province. And there is Begonia Castiloy, at the mouth also of caves. Normally, begonias grow well at the mouth of caves. But Luzon is also famous for its beaches, particularly Pagudpod. And in Pagudpod, you find this beautiful peltate species, Begonia hernandoides. You also have this in your greenhouse. In 2012, we went an expedition in Luzon, and one of the areas that we covered is Nueva Ecija. Near the river is this beautiful begonia. So after collection, we have to study it. And of course, we have to celebrate because it's a new species. And so I have to thank my Taiwanese collaborator who really helped me together with Dr. Mark Hughes. They supported me with my dissertation. And so I owe him a lot, so I have to name that beautiful begonia in honor of him. Unfortunately, last year he passed away, Dr. Jimmy Pei. So this is Begonia chinipeni, which I named in 2014. Also nearby, in a nearby province, is another begonia. Now we go to southern Luzon, Catanduanes. You see this begonia Tito Evangelistei. And then around Quezon is begonia policlada. And then begonia adamsensis. Why are they hanging on for survival? Because they are endangered of deforestation. Many of our forests are, the trees are being cut because the land are converted into industrial farms, converted into subdivisions or residential areas. So a lot of the trees are being taken down. So, for today, I would like to thank my university for giving me the airfare, the American Begonia Society for inviting me and taking care of me here, the Botanical Research Institute of Texas for hosting me there at the herbarium, the Fort Worth Botanic Garden for showing me your greenhouse and sharing with me your begonias. But most of all, I would like to thank you, the awesome begonia lovers. In the Philippines, I would always say, as if I'm the only one who likes begonia. But here, people, you are in love with begonia. So I would like to thank further the person who invited me, Don Miller, Dr. Peter Fritz, who accommodated me at Breed, Tiana, where are you, Tiana? Who take care of me. And the pictures are not mine. They belong to my collaborators, Dr. Jean, Dr. Kufang, and Dr. Patrick Black. Thank you. Now you can ask your questions. Yes?
The deforestation figures that you were talking about from 1985 to 2004, the increase from 18% to 33%?
It's because of tree planting.
Oh, reforestation.
Reforestation.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Reforestation.
And potentially also improved GPS or global emissions.
Yeah.
GIS.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Most of the species that you showed Palawan are limestone.
Yes.
Are there other begonias that might occur on serpentine or ultramafic soil?
No,
They don't like-
mostly on limestone.
They don't like it.
Mostly on limestone.
Is that true throughout the Philippines or just in Palawan?
You see, for my dissertation, I visited only the type localities. So it's only now that I'm starting with other localities. So I had to prioritize the habitat. That's why. Maybe, I don't know yet. Maybe. Because in the herbarium, I have seen a lot of begonias. And I believe they are new because these are begonias that I have never seen. And they are not comparable. They are not the same with the species that I have studied. And these begonias were collected from places that I've never been. So I believe I have to go there and verify if they are indeed new species. Yes. When I was there at the greenhouse, I asked Debbie if I will offend people regarding the term species. I have to tell you the correct botanical term is species. Never use the term species. Okay? It's always species. It's singular and plural. So now you learn about it. So please use the proper botanical term. It is species. The Australian Begonia Society also welcomed me when I told them about it. Hopefully I won't offend you. Yes.
So you talked about how far you have to travel to make these collections, and we all know to make the herbarium specimens that we have in our herbarium, you have to have them dried quickly.
Yes.
But these are obviously some humid places that you're going to. How did you keep them from molding?
Normally, after collection, we would start processing already. So we press them neatly. You have to arrange the leaves neatly because that would be their that will be their appearance when they are dry. So you really have to spread the leaves, you spread the tepals, you have to show the stamens, the ovary, so it should be a clean pressing. And after which, we place them in large plastics and soak them with alcohol. And then when we are in our stations, even if you return in 2 months, they are intact. We don't expect molds or fungi. So when you return to your station, you change the newspapers and start drying them. That was before I met the Taiwanese group. The Taiwanese group, they have very nice dryer that you can carry in the field. You should buy that.
Yeah.
Because after collecting them this morning, tonight we process them neatly and place them in that portable dryer. Tomorrow morning they are dry. The tepals are pink. The leaves are green. Yeah, you should buy that.
With ethanol, the leaves darken and the flowers darken and the material becomes brittle. Did you use 100% ethanol, or we were using
We just buy the
50-50?
ordinary rubbing alcohol.
Rubbing, okay. That's pretty high, yeah. With 50-50,
Because that's cheaper.
50-50 is not too bad. I mean, you still get some color, retain the colors, but we actually did send over a plant frame, a dryer frame, and we have this material that can go around the frame. But it's funny because you can't get 220 volt space heaters here. You know, only get 110. So you have to buy it from someplace online in UK or something and have it sent here, and then we send it there.
You buy it from China. It's made in China.
But can you get them in the Philippines?
No.
Nobody needs a space heater. It's 90 degrees.
My Taiwanese collaborators bring them.
Yeah, okay, right. I was afraid of that. I was hoping I could just go down to the parking store and take one.
Yes.
When you collect and preserve in the ethanol, do you also collect any tissue separate for
Yes.
DNA?
Normally, the Taiwanese group would collect leaves and preserve in silicon gel
Oh, great.
for
Okay.
DNA work.
Because the ethanol can
Yeah.
damage or degrade the tissue for DNA. Great.
And we collect rhizomes for the rhizomatous ones and bring them to Taiwan because they have a good greenhouse there. So the Philippine begonias are growing well in Taiwan at the Academia Sinica campaign.
Great.
Yes.
Did you notice any obvious pollinators? Begonias?
Normally the primary reason why begonias are now endemic is that they would just fall into the ground and just grow there. The birds are not attracted, the insects are not attracted. Our hypothesis is that only the earthworm spreads the seed. And for pollination, maybe the insects would not be going that far. That's why it's very narrow. It's just very limited to that place.
Even on those cliffs?
Yes, even on those cliffs.
Oh, I have
Yes.
a question. Phylogeny, you mentioned phylogeny. Is there any data, good data about, I mean, has there been a sampling to know whether the Philippines species form a large clade or whether they come from all over the place around Asia?
Normally, the Philippine clade is intact.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Really, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. That's really interesting.
Because the studies of, together with Mark Hughes, who's studying Southeast Asia, together with Dr. Ching, who's studying not only Southeast Asia, but China, Indochina as well.
Mhm.
So
Right. So
the
the
Philippine
sample's good.
species.
Yeah.
is monophyletic.
So do they all have a common ancestor and they kind of branch out?
The hypothesis is it's a China origin. The origin of the section Bariandra grandis, species grandis is China in origin.
Interesting.
You mentioned there's like 60 sections of begonia.
Yeah.
Have those been tested in a molecular phylogeny?
Yeah, there is. We have
to
a
test
new
their
paper
monophylety?
published last year.
Oh, okay.
Work by the PhD student of Dr. Marcus in Edinburgh.
And that supports the
Yes.
monophylety of those sections. That's impressive.
This is the reason why I had to separate the Philippine begonias. Formerly, the section that I studied is called section Diploclinium. So originally, before my study, there are 3 sections in the Philippines. Section Diploclinium, Bariandra, and Petermania. But after my studies, morphologically and molecular work supports that the Philippine begonias are homogeneous and they are monophyletic and they are, because the original section, which is Diploclinium, is a heterogeneous group. Even the type, which is grandis, is far away from the other Diploclinium relatives. That's why I had to separate that the Philippine begonias from that big section Diploclinium and transfer them to the section which is monotypic. The only representative of Bariandra is a Philippine species. So I had to transfer all of the Philippine species to section Bariandra. So supported by morphology and molecular work. Yeah.
Is there an altitude at which a begonia will not grow?
Many of the begonias are altitudinal requiring. So some would really grow in the of higher altitude. But some of them are also growing at lower altitude. You have seen some of the begonias near the shore. So many of them are scattered in different altitudes.
What is the greatest altitude of anything in
the Philippines, the highest peak is Mount Apo, is more than 3,000 meters high. That's the highest peak of the Philippines, 3,000.
Meters.
Yeah, meters. Which is how much?
Yeah, what is that?
10,000 feet.
10.
Yeah.
It's active.
Begonia oxysperma. Begonia oxysperma, that is one of the climbing epiphytic begonia, is very much altitudinal requiring. You find it only in mossy forest. So you find it only in Mount Polis in Mountain Province. You find it only in Isarog in southern Philippines, and where else? Only in Luzon. You don't find it in Visayas.
If it's a Chinese origin or mainland origin, do you find more begonias in the north than the south?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. A lot of begonias in Luzon, and we, together with Dr. Marcus, we hypothesized that Mindanao is a sink.
Mm-hmm. That's really
There are a little, but I believe because of little collection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen a lot here of begonias from Mindanao.
That's one reason I'm focused on that. Yeah.
Mindanao is under-collected because of security reasons. So maybe there are a lot more in Mindanao because I have seen a lot here which I cannot identify. So I'm frustrated. So I want to go back into the forest of Mindanao. It's not that easy. But our collaborators will not bring you to dangerous places. I'm sure of that. More questions? I love here in your state, not Texas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. enjoyed that, and we've got refreshments over here and drinks for anyone.